Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Tony, this is my workshop, and if you follow me you know we're just about to start on another epic build. This time it is the SD.KFZ.7, another incredible model from Armortek, a full 1:6 scale German half-track, which was widely used across the Europe and North Africa in the Second World War. This is an iconic vehicle, very recognizable, and most of you, if you follow this kind of thing, would recognize this as soon as the name comes up. This is my first commission build, so I'm going to give a massive shout out again to Peter Windmill. Peter has entrusted me to build this iconic model. This is a number 12 in the Armortek series for this particular kit, and I'm really looking forward to getting stuck in. In the last video I unboxed all the boxes that Peter delivered to me. I went through all the parts with you. I familiarized myself with all the parts. Just love looking at the parts from Armortek, handling them, and when you work with them it's a real pleasure. And now that's given me an opportunity to really think about the first stage of this build. So I've got everything ready. I've got my motorcycle jack, so the chassis is now elevated on that to help me work around the model easier. I've got the parts that Peter's already built and ready to go on. I've got my instructions. I've got all the fasteners and all the parts I'm going to need for the next few critical stages. And I will talk you through how I'm going to go about, how I'm going to approach that, I should say, sorry. Because I'm going to do it slightly different to how it is laid out in the instruction manual, because I just think it'll be a little bit simpler for a novice like me, and if you're following this, to help you as well. So that's about it. But before I reposition the camera, I just want to say a massive thank you to all of you, all those wonderful comments, all those messages of support and good luck, if you like, in this build series. That really means a lot to me. And if you are considering becoming a member, that would be amazing, but you don't have to. It's just I will start putting more and more content on that area as well that I can't put on my normal channel. And of course, if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing, because we have got a long journey on this incredible build. So enough of that. I'm now going to reposition the camera. I'm going to get stuck right in. So I'm about to get started. I will zoom in nearer when we get into the next stage, but just wanted to show you this. So as I said in the previous video, Peter's already assembled this chassis. He's done an amazing job on it. It's perfectly square. The only thing that really needs to be put on here now is the mid-stretcher assembly, which is Peter's already assembled in full. And as you can see, when it's on one of these motorcycle jacks, it just makes life very easy. You can spin the model around and get to any part of it within ease. And as this gets bigger and bigger and bigger, this will become even more important. So that's got to go on. And there's also some bump stops, which Peter hasn't put on just yet because he doesn't want them painted, but that's fine. I'm going to put them on, but then I'm going to mask them off, because I understand he wants to leave them as black rubber, which is absolutely fine. But I'm putting them on in case at some point in the build I forget to put them on, or it becomes problematic to get to them. And at some point in the very near future, I'm going to have to paint this chassis up, and I want to be able to move forward. So let's get the first things done. I'm just going to take out the masking points as Peter has already put them in. It's always a good idea to do that, because especially if they're threaded, you want them to be a nice clean hole. You don't want paint building up. But I'm going to pop them out for now, especially these ones here, because we need to get these 4 fixings in. And I am going to be able to share with you very soon. I've just done an amazing deal with a paint company. I've sort of managed to obtain some discounts for myself, but also, while we're talking about painting, this is also I'm going to be able to share a discount code, a special Tony's Workshop discount code for you, and if you'll find that in the description of this video. And if you go on there, if you wanted to buy some paints for if you're building one of these or similar, if you want to buy the paints that I'm using on here, there will be a discount code for you to use. So that's that. Right, so I'm just going to leave all that there, position that in the position it should go, and these are secured by some 10mm M3 countersunk screws, and I will be thread locking these in. Peter's been he's been very clear that he just wants me to build this as if it's one of my own. But if there's anything on here that I feel that needs Peter's input, I will of course contact you, Peter, away from the video. So this will be going on. Again, Peter's done a lovely job with this. And then what we'll do is we'll start talking about this, the idler assembly. I've been looking at that and wondering how the best way to achieve that. And I just think I'm going to do it slightly different to how it sets out on the instructions. So I'm going diagonally opposite, so I know that the holes are all aligned, and they are. It's always, every time I start a new build, I'm always a little bit nervous, like I said many times, and then when you get into the swing of it, you begin to almost form a bond with the model. So I'm hoping the same thing happens here. This to me is probably one of the best things you can do on a nasty winter's day, and we're just approaching winter here in the UK, and the weather is showing its ugly self again to be the classic British winter, wet, cold and damp. So what else could you want to do but to come into your workshop or garage and while the hour's away doing something incredible like this. I have got barrier cream on my hands as always, so I don't care if I get any of the thread locker or anything on my hands. And I just want to say thanks again for, I just get so much support from you guys. It's amazing, and it blows me away. It really does, and I can't thank you enough for all of that amazing support, and I hope it continues, and I really hope you guys enjoy the journey we're about to go on together on this build. Another voyage of discovery. That's on there nice and tight. So just a couple of other things. I'll probably leave those plugs in for now, and then when I decide to paint it, I'll plug them all up as well. So that's in the right position. Let's go and do these bump stops. As I said, I'm going to do them now because I don't want to be in a position where I've overlooked them and I can't get to them, or I forget to put them in. It becomes a problematic thing to do later on. So there's 4 of these to go on, and I will, once I've got all this in place, I'll go off and get the masking tape and mask them up before we go on to the next stage. The instructions on this are, if I didn't know any better, they're scary. They always are at the early stages when you're building this thing or these models. But if you are considering, I mean, this kit's now sold out on Armortek's site, so it's no longer available. But you may be able to pick one up on the second-hand market or somewhere like that. But whichever model you decide to go for, if you are going to get into this hobby, don't be put off by the instructions. They are so clear, and they're so precise and so well illustrated. It's a real pleasure to follow. But once you've built a few, like I have now, you do start thinking about, is there an alternative or a better and easier way to achieve that particular step? And that's what I'm about to show you. Just get this last one in, get the masking tape on, and then I'll be back. Give that a bit of a wipe over. Right, so I'll just get these masked up and then I'll be back to camera. So first things first, this is the first part I'm going to start doing some assembly work on. You have the 2 brackets which sit either side of this mount here, and that mount allows you to secure this, which is the torsion bar housing, if you like, and then the 2 torsion bars meet on the normal round end, butt jointed into this. And then I believe that with some of this you have some grub screws here which will then secure and lock in the position of these torsion bars, and then these end up going through a rod the other end, flat bar I believe, flat bar goes into the rod the other end, probably this end, I don't know yet, we're going to work that out, and then locked into position through this hole here, and then all of that is housed inside this, and then that is obviously sleeved over the top of this, and so on and so forth. So you can see that although the first diagram that I showed you would suggest assemble all this and then go, you know, and put the idler arms, I'm going to do it slightly differently. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the first of these brackets on. So the flange on this side points to me, and the curved end here obviously sits within this. This is a curved profile here. You can see that. So that's that. I'm going to do that, and these are secured, I believe, with double checking M3 6 butts, and they go through the face of that, so that goes through that hole there. Always a bit tricky. Put it through there first, I think. Through the hole, hold that, and wind the opposing nut on the end. Just keeping that loose for now. Same deal. It's always tricky. Just spin that nut on. These first stages of the build, like I said earlier, are always the most anxious parts, because you don't want to mess anything up, especially that this is a commission build. That's the last thing I want to do. So the temptation now would be to see if you can get this block installed here. This block here is what the torsion bar mount gets secured to, but you can't fix it at this stage because it isn't actually fastened to this. It's fastened, or sandwiched if you like, between this plate and this torsion bar mount here. And of course, if you put that on now, you'll never get to the securing parts at the back. So at the moment you can see there's 4 holes. Hopefully you can see that. These ones here are what secure this block through from the back plate, and these 2 here are what secure the torsion bar into position. Now what's interesting, there's no flat spot on that. I might flatten that off a bit, and then there's a grub screw that goes through that and locks that into position. So by putting that on there, you wouldn't be able to lock that in. So that's that. But what we can do is get this bolted to its plate. Just checking the orientation, and that is correct, and that goes on there like that. Just making sure that the countersunk holes are on the rear face, and they are. Now it's just a matter of hopefully just holding that into position. Get the nut. It will go on. Just tighten that up a little bit. Stop it from moving around too much. I'll go back and work on that again. And another fixing here, which is these are countersunk 8mm M3 fixings. And again, I'm using thread locker on these. Hopefully the camera's zoomed in enough. One word of note: these brackets here, very sharp brackets here. These are a little bit bent out of shape, so I just had to tighten those up or straighten them out before I started working with it. Now I'm quite happy to tighten these up. And the idea is that these sit, hang on, this is the outside, these sit, there's a hole in the side of that there, see that? That gets bolted into position there, and I've marked this up with an L saying it's the left hand side, and the opposing one goes, or the opposite one goes this way. Now my point is, if you've got, let me just try and demonstrate, if you've got your torsion bars, and they're in there like that for argument's sake, and you've got these rods here, or these sleeves here that go through this, I believe they go, let's pop that in there, that's right, and then that's on there. You've got to try and get that in there. You can see what I'm trying to achieve here. Oh, can you? Let me show that. This is round. You've got to get this torsion bar assembly through that, and then how do you get it into here? So what I'm thinking about doing is, if that was installed first, and then I offer that into that, and then the opposing one, this side, can then slide in and lock into position that way. So that's why I'm approaching it the way I am. Hope that makes sense. So anyway, that's that. This one will not go on until we've got this block in place, wherever that block's gone. It's here somewhere. There. So now just need to look at these. Now these are handed, so you have left and right. So this I've already marked up is the left hand side, and this is the left hand idler wheel or idler arm. However, that's not going in there very well. This needs to move fairly smoothly. It needs to have freedom of movement, because to make the suspension work as it should, that's very tight. And let me have a look at what's going on here. Oh, I can feel there's some imperfections on the edge of that, but that's not a problem. So I'm just going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my bench grinder and just flatten that off. Just going to take a smidge off of that and a smidge off this side to make sure that these work, because that's really not good. So let me do that and I'll be back. Okay, let's have a look. That's better. So let's just put the pin in temporarily just to see how easy that is to move now. Look at that. That's how it should be. Shouldn't be sticking in any way whatsoever. Now, let's talk about painting, because obviously once this is installed, not sure I'm going to get paint in here. So I've got a feeling I'm going to have to prime and paint these. Or certainly prime this, prime and paint this. So when all this is all bolted together and it's all onto the chassis, when I go around painting it and the full paint job on the chassis, I don't have to worry about this because it's already done. So that's the principle of that. As I said, this will then go into position on there, and torsion bar, let's have a look. That torsion bar should be in there, and that fits onto the block. And then we can do exactly the same thing, but just feeding the torsion bar from the other side. Let me spin this around, sorry. So feeding the torsion bar from the other side. I just don't know how you would do that, in fairness. I just don't know how you could achieve that if you've already got these bolted in place. I can see you probably get away with bolting one in place, but the other one would have to be slid on afterwards. And then, of course, this bracket, once everything's in place, can be then positioned either side of that block. So the very first job for me to do now is to take all this out, get that pin out, is to clean these up, both of these, and get these painted. Let's just check. Yeah, that's the same problem. I'm going to have to clean that up as well. So these need to be cleaned, primed, painted, and then we can carry on. But I'm not going to show you that. I'm just going to go away from camera, do that, and then when it's all dry, I'll come back and we can get stuck in. Okay, so that's all the parts that I'm going to need for this next step. cleaned, primed and lightly painted in the Dunkelgelb. We will get another coat of Dunkelgelb when I eventually paint the entire chassis. A couple of points of note. So on these idler arms themselves, there's a couple of parts that are quite important to put on at this stage. So there's a little bump stop which I've put on, and there's this part here which allows there's a bracket that connects this to the chassis to allow this to move up and down. So I thought I'd put those on before I painted them. Now these are not finished, but they've got enough paint on them to warrant being installed at this stage. So let's talk about sequencing. Right, so this is how it is. These are handed. I'm going to call it my left and my right. This part here slides into this housing here and is connected with this sleeve here, and then that sleeve allows you to secure the torsion bar into place. That torsion bar is then positioned in place inside this little round holder here, and then we do the same the other side. And so that's what I'm talking about. I'm going to break down, if you like. I mean, the instructions do talk about step by step, but it's still needs to be thought about. So I'm going to get started. We're going to put this together, get this onto the chassis, and then we'll talk about the next step. Okay, so the idler cross member goes in this position here, and these curves here work with these curves on this thing here, so on this block here. So I'll put this bracket on. I just need to put the other fixings in to the back of it. And I'm kind of happy in my own mind now, the sequence. And Armortek are quite good at the way the written instruction talks you through each step. And it's very important that you read the instructions on this particular step, because I've read them 3 or 4 times and it took me a while to sort of get my head around it, but now I'm happy with it. So when I talked to you about the sequence before, I think I'm going to stick to that kind of plan, if you like, but I'll explain what I've done in a minute with the torsion bars, because I've sort of kind of had to, using my methodology, I have set them out to the right distance and the right length. So that's that. One more. You notice I haven't finished put the finished coat on this side yet, and as I said, you know, this is painted but it's not finished painted. I just wanted to get paint in the areas that I'm not going to be able to get to when we get further down the road with the model. So then this here sits in this position here, a couple of fixings there, and there's a fixing that goes through there and through there, and then we can then start applying the putting the idler arms on in the method that I've vaguely spoke about. So we can go ahead now and install this. I just need to go and get all the right fasteners, and then I'll be straight back. Okay, so I've got all the fasteners. I'm going to pop the front ones in first, I think. Just locate it into the hole. Might need the one with the ball end on it. Okay, that's in, but it's not tight. We'll go around and tighten them all up afterwards. I want to get these into place. It's quite a critical part of the build, this, because this does a lot of work. I've contradicted myself there. I'll just undo that a little bit. Right, now 4 fixings. These are 10mm countersunk M3 fixings. Again, it's a testament to how well Peter's built this chassis, because they all appear to be lining up perfectly. Yeah, look at that, perfect. That one's in, not tight. That one's in, not tight. Actually, in the time it's taken me to paint these parts, Monster Colours, which is the company that I'm now buying my paints from, have come back with a discount code. And if you look at the description of this video, you will see that there's a link there. If you are looking, if you're in the market to buy some paint, this is really, I mean, I've changed my paint supplier because I just felt I got better results with this particular supplier. The paint's really good quality. It's known as the King's Army paint. I'm sure you guys, if you're modelers, would have heard of them. But anyway, these guys make the King's Army paint, and they've put a discount available for all anybody watching these videos. So you should be able to go to the description of this video, the written description, and see a link to the paint manufacturers to give you at this stage a small discount. But the more paint I buy, and I'm buying quite a lot of paint, the bigger that discount will be available for you guys. So that's that locked into position. Now we're going to go on and start installing the idler arms. Okay, I've tried to position the camera as best I can and got some light on it because it's all inside here. It's going to be difficult, but this is going to be tricky. You might want to go and get yourself a cup of tea because this is tricky. But anyway, first things first. The torsion bar housing. So I've got these torsion bars measured identically dead center of this. I've fixed them from the back with a couple of grub screws and thread locker, and that's going to be nice and firm. The trick is, how do you get this in and out here? Well, let's pop it in first, and we're going to go for this side here to start with. So let's move that out of the way. I'm going to move this round so I can see the pin. And what I should say, sorry, this hole here in the bottom of the idler arm needs to line up with this hole here so we can get this big old bolt, this 12mm M5 cap fixing through to lock the torsion bar off. So that's going to go in there. Still see it in camera, I think. Need to turn that round and pop that in there just like that for now. Then I'm going to pop the torsion bar in, push that over towards that side, which allows me to get this idler arm in and push this pin into place. Now the trick is, oh, I had it then. The trick is to get this into, hang on, got to try and get these, that's in. Let's have a look, get some light on the scene. What I might do is wind that bolt in I'm not going to use any thread locker just yet. It just about clears that hole. Oh. I don't know why that's not going in there, but anyway, what I'm trying to do is see if I can lock the torsion bar off. I know that I know it's flat when I turn it around that way, so that should be all right. Let's just get a slightly different angle on that. Don't know. It's had a bit of a, because of the bump stop doing its job, it's quite tricky that, to get that in. Anyway, we'll work that out in a minute. First things first, let's just go there. That's it. Get that rotated round. Now we should be both on the flat spot. So I'm going to try go in. There's no give on that. I'll go in this side to start with, and I'm going to go in with a little bit of confidence because I know I've got that set up correctly. Get that bolt. Just want it to sit in that hole. Going in. Right. That is going to prove to be tricky. Okay, go again. I might do the old trick of turning the camera off. That tends to work. Is it biting now? Yeah, it's starting to bite. Okay, so even just talking about the camera going off frightens it. And we're in now. Just get some more torque on that. That's it. There we go. That's in now. Ooh, and these need to be really tight. As tight as possible. You want these when this is bolted in, you want these to to do the perform as they should. So that one's in. Might go around and tighten that up again. Now let's do that again. Let's threaten to turn the camera off. Put some thread locker on this. It's just awkward where the bump stops are meeting. And once the head clears this plate, it becomes easier. Now, see, just talking about the camera going off, it works. There we go. Again, just needs a bit more torque on it. Right. If you've noticed, just realised something. I need to centre that housing up. So apologies. Again, another warts and all. Right, so get this. I need to centre this up. The way to do that would be to get this block here. Get that in behind it. Rotate that around to allow that to. That's it. So I've got to make sure these fixings picked up the thread from behind. So let's just see if I can get in behind that and tighten that up. Just want to feel it biting really. At the moment. I did say go and get yourself a cup of tea, didn't I? Or coffee. Oh, that's biting now. Okay, so I know that's in there. Right, let's go back and tighten this up. Right, let's just go in and tighten all this up. I'm just holding it so it's in the flat spot of the torsion bar. That feels good. Tight, tight, tight. Armortek don't give you any sort of degree of poundage or anything to torque, using a torque wrench or anything with this. It's just tight. Oh, tight. Tight. Right, just going to give that a bit of a wipe over, just any excess thread locker. Right, so now we can lock off this housing here from the back, and I've got one in already, just need to put another one in, just to, there's two fixings that go in from the back of this. That's it, nice and tight, and they're both tight now. That's good. That feels good. Won't really know until we got some proper weight on it. So that's that. The only thing we need to do now is to put the other side bracket on now that everything's in place. And I think these are fixed by, what are they? You have to go all the way back now to the instructions. I'm pretty sure these are, yeah, these are 6mm butt fixings, and going to be awkward. Let's just move this way a little bit so we can get to the bracket. There we go. You can see why they wouldn't want you to put this in, and they're quite clear about that. I'll put a little bit of thread locker on my finger, on the back of that. M3 nut goes on the back, and of course these are not painted, but that's not a problem. Just spin that on. We use the ball end tool just to tighten that up. Last one goes into the top. And then just put some thread locker on the back of that. Sorry about the background noise, if you can hear that. My wife's got the WI here today. That's why I'm hiding in the garage. Aren't they loud? Okay. So that's that bit done. Right, so the next stage of this particular build will be putting these cross members in here, plus there's a couple of arms to go on here, and these brackets here that connect everything up to the chassis and allow the torsion bars to do their job. But ahead of that, I just wanted to make sure, so obviously you've seen me put these on. I want to make sure that these are, so they're on the flat spot on the torsion bar here, which we talked about, and having done that now, they're sitting perfectly above the same distance above the bump stops. And if I just turn around, I'm just going to eye that in, it's perfect. So I'm just using that wooden rod just to make sure that they're aligned. So they're aligned perfectly. Right, that's that. Now, I've orientated the chassis this way up, although the instructions show it slightly differently, but I think this would be the easiest way to do it. And checking the instructions, you have a series of 3 holes on here. The rear of the vehicle is here, obviously. These 2 holes here, which are closer together, appear to be positioned towards the rear of the vehicle. So I'm going to just see if I can get that in. Nope. And the flange is pointing away, so it's pointing to the outside of the vehicle. So just trying to see if I can get that into position. Might have to use some gentle persuasion. And again, I've just primed these so that they're just prime them so they're easier to, not so of an issue to paint later down the line. So I'm going to have to align those up, the holes. So that needs to go over a little bit more. Just gentle taps. Almost. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of my, any tool I can get my hand on, just to feed that through that hole, so I know that that's aligned. Do the same this end. That needs to go a little bit more. Oh. Just about to see the holes there, yeah. So they're aligned. And these are fixed with, what are these fixed with? These are fixed with M6 butts, right? M3 times 6mm butts. So I'll go and get some of those and some opposing nuts, and we can get these on. Okay, got the fixings. Thread locker. Go for the top one. That's in. Spin that round. That's going to be awkward, so I think it's time to get the surgical tools out. I know it's early stages, but I'm really enjoying this. But I can see that you could quite easily get go awry with the instructions if you're not careful. But as I said many times, I always read the instructions several times. Back to front, front to back, whichever way. Is it biting? Yes, it's biting now. Awkward, but the old forceps are brilliant. So I'm gonna, well, let's put this other one in, and then I'll go around and I'll tighten all these up off camera. So again, that's just going to mirror opposite. So I'm going to pop that underneath there. Let's move this back so you can see it in camera. Sorry. It is tight, but it's going in. Brilliant. Got the holes all the way around. That's it. Anyway, there we go. So we get that lined up. Wow, first time. And this end. Perfect. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and just put all these fixings in, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about the parts at the back here. Okay, so the next parts to go on are these rear supports and these link brackets that link the idler arm to the chassis, and I've got to put the plates on the back of the idler arm housing. I'm not going to put these in just yet because they're going to get in the way. Right, just as it happens, just before we go ahead with this, one thing I forgot to mention to you on the idler arm, or setting the idler arms, is that in the instructions it does say 20 degrees, and the 20 degrees is measured from the bottom of this here. I mean, I've got it upside down, but it should be the top, I guess, but as it's orientated currently, the bottom of this and the angle of the idler arm. And I've checked that, I did check that, and it is perfect. So I've got this set at 20 degrees, so it's perfect. But if you get the flat spot right and you set out the torsion bars on the center housing here, and you get the flat bar in the right position, it should set itself to 20 degrees regardless, because it has to work with these holes here. So Armortek have worked that out, I believe. So it's actually quite straightforward. I think the thought of it's probably more complex than the actual physical nature of doing it. So that's that. So apologies for not covering that off, but anyway, we'll move on. So these link brackets here, again, because I've got this this kit upside down, it differs to how it looks on the instructions, but the slotted part of this is the part that links attached to, you, if you like, the idler arm, and then there's a nut that goes on the threaded part here. Now I'm going to put some thread locker on this because Armortek do say to keep this fairly loose to allow it to rotate. I'm just going to wind that nut on. It's always one. Right, okay. So I'm just going to wind it on by hand, and it's got thread locker on it, so it will not, once that thread locker is set, it will not come off. And then we have this cap fixing here, again with the thread locker on. That goes, because of the slot, you can raise it up, and that goes into, it's going to be easy for me to show you on the other side. That just winds into the chassis. I'm guessing that we need to keep this loose as well. Just get that aligned. And just wind it in by hand. Again, because of the thread locker. So this is all fairly loose, and that makes sense because when the idler arm, when the weight is on it and the idler arm is pushed up, then this slot here will allow that to travel without any difficulty. Probably just wind that in a little bit more, and that's about where it should be, I think. In fact, that cap fixing doesn't go all the way in anyway, so unless I've just want to check, does it wind itself in? No, it comes to a stop anyway, so you can't get it in any further. Just give that a bit of a tighten up that side. That's that. Do the same this side. So this slot goes on there like that. Thread locker on that thread. Nut. This is an M4 nut that goes on here. Come back and do that in a minute. Thread locker on that fixing. If you can see that. Just tighten that off. I was thinking about painting, and I might have to rethink the sequence of the build to facilitate, because I think this whole chassis is going to need to be painted once the drive cases are on, all the various other parts that need to be built up on this. So we're going to get as far as I think we can, and then I'm going to clean and prime and repaint everything on the chassis. So that's that. They're in. All good. Right, so let's get these rear support arms on. Now, the way I've got my model rotated upside down, this makes life a lot easier to get, certainly to get the first fixing in. Now, these can only go in one location and one orientation because the angle would suggest that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 6mm butt fixing in the chassis here. Just put some thread locker on that. That goes underneath. Line that fixing up. Locate it in the hole, hopefully. Always tricky when the camera's on. Never mind, it's in now. I'm tempted to put this in fairly tight just to hold that in position, so it makes life a little bit easier to put the other fixing in. So we've got an 8mm countersunk fixing that goes through the steel plate at the back here, locates that into that hole, and the old trick of trying to get my big old sausage finger into position so I can get that nut on. Always think that might have got it. Feels right. No, cross-threaded. Put it in again. I'm going to have to. Let's just threaten to turn the camera off again, shall we? No, I'm going to have to get the forceps on that. We'll do that in a minute. I'll get the other one on this side and then I might even flip it up the other way. Right, so let's get the other one on. And that again, let's make sure we get the right orientation. And that is it. So we can go for getting that fixing in there. Peter's probably watching this. Peter, I hope you're pleased with how I'm going about this. Slowly and steady is the word, I think. Let me just spin this around. See if it's any easier for me. Yeah, it probably would be actually. And I think the forceps will come into play here. I won't do both of these on camera because it is like watching paint dry. Bit of light on the scene, I think. Oh, I feel like a surgeon bat light going in. That's better. That's it, nice and tight. So I'm going to do the other one, and then what we're going to do next, we'll just put these plates on here, and then we're going to talk these plates here, and then we'll talk about the next stage. Right, so the only thing we need to do left in this session is to put these plates on, and these are secured by these little M3 hex bolts. I've left these off right to the last minute because I wasn't sure whether there was going to be an issue with the idler arms. Fortunately there was no issues. But anyway, these are now going on. Nice detail. You can see that, this plate here. Difficult to film a lot of this because close up, I think you can't really locate where it is on the kit. So I've just gone diagonally opposite to start with. And feeling confident that everything's aligned as it should. Line that one in. I've read the instructions several times, and this is quite a complex kit. I'm not sure how, I mean, it's been out a while, so not sure how people have got on with it. Just have a look at that, is that? Yeah. Should go in, shouldn't be any issues with that. Just me being a bit of a thicko. That's it. Yeah, I'm not sure how people got on with this kit. I haven't been on the forum. I should really do that. So I probably will have a look on the forum, see if there's any sort of any issues that people have had on there. Always a good idea. But so far, just with the methodical instructions and just spending a bit of time, I've probably spent about 2 full days reading the instructions, getting my head around it, getting all the parts out, and just getting my head around, because this part is quite an essential part, very crucial part of the build. Let's put the other block on. And as this is not my model, this is Peter's, I want to make sure I do the best possible job for Peter. So I'm happy with the way I've gone about it. I'm happy with everything as it currently sits. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a look through the instructions ahead of doing my final piece to camera and work out what the next step for me would be on this build. But I feel really privileged. If you saw the unboxing video, the parts are just incredible. And I feel really privileged to be able to build something like this for Peter. Really excited about, you know, the next few steps. And like always on these builds, when it starts coming together, you know, it's difficult to visualize it as it currently sits. We're just looking at the build up of the chassis, but it's also a really nice way of familiarizing yourself with the build early days, just making sure you do everything carefully. And I can't wait to see this. Obviously throughout the process of me building this up, the paint's been damaged, but not bothered about that. I'm just more worried about getting the paint on the inside of here, as we discussed. So that is it. That's as far as I'm going to go today. So I'm really pleased with that progress of this part of the chassis. A very slow entry, but I'm glad we've got that part done. Now I'm going to just have a quick look at the instructions to work out what would be the next practical and logical step in this build. So that's it. That's the end of the very first episode of this brand new series, this build of this amazing Armortek SD.KFZ.7. I keep thinking that's a mouthful, and it really is. I may get used to saying that by the end. Right, so now we're at the talky bit, and sorry about that, but there's a bit to talk about. What were the main issues with this? None really. I think if anything, when you read the instructions, it looks a little bit daunting, and it is, but if you get the parts out, familiarize yourself with them, dry fit them, play around with them, which I did for a couple of days until I felt confident I knew what I was going to be doing. And then, as I said, there's always a number of ways to do these builds. Armortek give you really clear illustrative instructions and written instructions, and if you follow those to the word and apply a little bit of sort of your own background knowledge to it, you will get through it. So I'm really happy with the first real important part that I've built, which is the idler arm setup at the front, and I'm really happy with how firm they are and working in a way that I think they should work. And now it's on to the next step. Looking at the instructions, I will follow actually the next sequence to bring it to a point where I can get everything painted on the chassis, starting with the assembly of the leaf springs, and then I'll set them to one side while we carry on doing everything else. And I'm really looking forward to that. And ahead of that, actually, I mentioned during the course of the film of this, I was talking about Monster Colours, a company that supply or manufacture the King's Army paint. And this is the paint, not the Dunkelgelb, but this is the paint I use for the brown and the green on the camo scheme of my Jagdpanther and the Hetzer, and it's brilliant paint. I've used various other manufacturers in the past, sometimes Fosco, but a lot of the time it's this King's Army paint, and I've spoke to them directly and they've been brilliant. They've given me a discount, and there's also a discount code for you guys. If you look at the description of this video, there's a link to where if you want to buy paint, there's a link there and you'll get a small 5% discount, but the more paint I buy from them, and if you buy for them, they're going to increase that discount code. So hope that is helpful to you. So let's park that up because we're not going to need that paint just yet. So one thing I was thinking about, I mentioned, so the torsion bars, in the final scheme of this, I'm going to work out some way of doing a gaiter, and I've been practicing or playing around with some heat shrink rubber and bits and pieces, so I'm definitely going to do that for you, Peter, as well, because I think that will add a little bit of a nice detailing to it. So I will be doing that, but after it's all painted. One other thing I wanted to mention is I've always said that if you are going to do one of these builds, get yourself a really good reference book. Do as much research as you possibly can, but get yourself a really good reference book. And I've got one here, and I'm going to give this to Peter at the end of the build as well. It's got some really smart photographs, a lot of history about this particular vehicle and all half-track vehicles. And it's just fascinating read. Nice hardback edition there. So Peter, that's coming your way in several months' time if I get this thing built as soon as I possibly can for you. And I'm just going to sign off by saying a massive thank you to everyone, all of you, for all your wonderful kind wishes and best wishes for this build. A huge thank you to Peter, of course, for letting me build his model, but especially all those comments, all those thumbs up, all that support. It's incredible, and it just blows me away. So thank you so much. And to all my members, thank you so much again for signing up to be a member. And if you are tempted, please consider it, because I will be adding other special content to that over the next few months. So I really hope you do, but if you don't worry, please continue to support me in your normal way. And if you are, of course, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe, because we're at the start of this very long, intricate journey to build this incredible, iconic vehicle from Armortek's range of kits. So now I will finally sign off by saying I'm Tony. I love building these kits, and I can't wait to get started the next session. See you soon.